you stand here? Hey, LT, why don't you stand right here? All right, as soon as we get the go-ahead. You guys good? All right, wait for Sergeant Sprague. I need to talk to this person. The one who sent this anonymous information that was very powerful, that led us to Ogama County, because it was sent to the Ogama County Sheriff's Office. This letter talked about a specific location. In fact, the coordinates of those locations took us to this address, right inside Ogama County, to this location. It was so specific on saying, go to this dead-end road, look for a wheelbarrow, look for a spot where dirt was disturbed. This came in on the 26th of October, just last Thursday. It was sent to the sheriff's office. They called us. Our investigators deployed immediately. We went there. We contacted the state police. They brought their cadaver dogs, and we secured the location. Our evidence technicians went up there, but we didn't find anything. At least not Kelly. What we did find is an unusual dig site that was not by accident. The site was so unusual that when virgin dirt is disturbed, it can never go back to what it normally is. So there's always a different consistency when you probe it. There's a spot that even looks so real life that a person could have been, or at least started to have been dug there, but there was no body. This is why we need to contact this person. You're not in any trouble. You were so specific on your directions that you obviously felt burdened enough to send it. Concerned maybe you've had a bad interaction with law enforcement, maybe you're scared. I assure you, you have nothing to be scared about. And the sheriff's office up there and myself, we will treat you with the respect and dignity, but why? Why did you send this with such specific details and we couldn't find anything? That's what's been going on, among other things, over these last several days. The reason for this briefing with Lieutenant Nicholson, Lieutenant Stadler, is to show you what we've been doing for all these days and all that the DB is doing. But that's the takeaway that I need the media, because I do know this. The caller from Saginaw that saw the truck that identified it was what led us to the 2009 F-150 where Higgins took his life. I know that a caller called the homeowner up in Prescott saying, I just saw the briefing, the guy you have there is wanted for possible murder. And I also know that whoever sent this probably saw a briefing from one of these news channels. So please, you can call 810-257-3422. Our 24-hour dispatch will get you in touch with either Lieutenant Stadler or Nicholson, and we will protect you, watch over you. You don't even have to be known by anybody. I'm not going to put you out there, but I need to get the answers to that. In a minute, you're going to hear from both investigators. You're going to hear that the command, but I want to show where we are to kind of give some background, because I know we've been contacted by close friends and family members, and sometimes out of sight, out of mind, but not for this case. We have searched over 500 acres from Ohio to Ogama County. We've had 1,000 hours committed from this office just to put a case together that started 2 weeks ago last Monday. 1,000 hours. We've been in 5 counties: Genesee, Ogama, Tuscola, Bay, and Saginaw County, including 2 states, Ohio and Michigan. The work that their team has done is nothing but exceptional. This is a case where we've had cold cases. We had a body. We thought we knew who did it. We have a body. We know who did it. That's a who did it. How do we prove the case? This is a where did it. This is a where's the body. Again, everything we say is based on our investigation. We're confident that there's nobody else that was responsible for taking the life of Kelly McWhirter, but we always leave options open. We don't know who is involved. Clearly, somebody knew something, which is the reason why we're here. We use the resources like the state police. This is what's called Trooper 3. It's based out of Bishop Airport. And they flew all the way up to Ogama County and they helped us search. In fact, Lieutenant Stadler was in that bird. And how many hours did you fly with MSP, and how much work did they put in to try to find a dig site?
We were up in the air about 4.5 hours, and they used all the tools that they had and the experience that they have to try to locate different areas for us to put boots on the ground and be able to, based on where they thought we should go and where we should look, and they are still open to go back up any place that we would like them to go.
So this is the helicopter. We also have 100 hours of drone flying through Lieutenant Priest. Our drone can go and segue through a field and make sure we don't see anything from there that we missed on the ground or vice versa. Over 100 hours of drone footage, including the chopper. And so we continue to walk. In fact, you'll see this area right here in Montrose. This is Marshall Road, and there's a small little Keewatin Road that we got a tip that maybe it's there. Lieutenant, explain what it looks like when you go there and you have deputies and sergeants, lieutenants that are in search gear and soft clothes walking these trails. Tell us about this.
So we actually went through about 13 of us detectives that went there. We did a grid search, so we get within visual distance of each other, and we would basically do a grid search one way, come back the other way, until we completed a search of the entire area.
Now, we've gotten countless tips, so keep them coming. We've searched, as I said, over 500 acres. There are some sites that we're actively at right now. We're not going to disclose those because when the time is right, we may solicit volunteers. But again, the crime scene was initially from the Upper Peninsula down to Ohio. And we're going to explain why we've kind of tier 2'd the Ohio route of 75 and 23. And we did that based on our investigative research because of search warrants. So here's an example of the search warrants that this team has written with the assistance of APA Messer and David Layton, who is the prosecutor of this county. This is a search warrant for the loose address, Google records, Capital One credit cards, Cash App, Patriot Bank, he was a plasma donor, his body, the address up in Ogama, T-Mobile, Apple, his truck, Hyundai. The car that Kelly had is not only a search warrant for the car, but also the 2 information centers in that car, one of which is direct right to Hyundai itself. So you have to fill out all this paperwork in order to get the data, and here's how the data is given. Now, they don't teach this in Police Academy. Lieutenant Stadler, this is an example of data that was taken from a cell phone search warrant that gives us points. Now, for those that are coders, this is all DOS-based. It's ones and zeros, which is the baseline of all computer language. So you get something like this. How can we possibly interpret this kind of data that led us to searching some of these areas?
This is the first 200 pages of about 24,000 pages that came off of one of the search warrants that we did. And so we take all of this information and it gives us locations and GPS coordinates and all kinds of data, and we can dump that into software. And we take all of that information, and it will then be able to plot it into a map. And that's the only way that we are able to look at some of this and make it look very nice and very pretty, that we can follow it on a map.
So I want to point out, for the sake of those out there on an investigative algorithm, we get an idea that there may be some information on a particular device. We write the search warrant, we send it to the prosecutor's office to get approved. The judge swears it out with the investigator. We submit it to that organization. They process it through their legal, they approve it, then it goes to get the data, then the data is given to us. It goes to the investigator. The investigator has to learn how to interpret it. Listen to this. How long ago was it that you took the training in order to interpret that data?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And who gave us the training?
The FBI.
So we have training with the FBI 2 years ago to help us interpret data now. Now we have the data points. Now we give it to Nicholson and his team to go try to figure out, is there any way that this body could have been there? Are there 2 tracks there? Is there drag patterns? And that's how we get to the maps that we are right now. So I think it's important to realize that all these things that we're doing, just that one example, how many hours did it take you to get that data?
6.
6.
Wow.
And that's one search warrant. I think it's important also to know, how did you take that dirt and how long is it going to get to be processed on the dirt that they could be on the shovel?
So we took the dirt, obviously, to compare it to the dirt that's on the shovel. That way we can get a basis of whether we're looking in the right place. That's gonna go on, I'm not sure what the timeline is to get it back, honestly.
Long.
Absolutely, it could be months, honestly, before we get an analysis done to the soil that would compare it to the shovel.
And so as an example, we have lab reports that are out there for 10 pieces of biological and electronic evidence, and they're still being processed. And we're doing that to try to get a global view of what DNA is there, whose is it, so you got to do not only testing samples of what we recover, but comparables. It takes a long time, and of course the lab's doing work across the state, and we have 10 pieces with another 10 ready to go and another 10 ready to go. Deputy Stacci, who runs the evidence recovery and storage, we are on it all the day, every day. As soon as we have a break, because what it does is it either takes us closer to where we need to be or it eliminates where we thought we might be. These are the search warrants. That's the dirt. This is crime scene search. These are the things that are happening. That cadaver dog that you saw in here from the state police, here's a picture of this dog digging into that dirt to try to sense any kind of decomposition. That's what these dogs do. So our friends from the FBI, the state police, Ogama County Sheriff's Office, the local police, they're helping us. The data that we're talking about with Lieutenant Stadler, what do we do with it? How do we know that Ohio is now Tier 2'd? And you're gonna see from these maps when she explains it why it's important to get data to map it out and determine, is there probable cause to believe that this person deviated off the path down 75 and up 23? And the answer to that is right now, no. Explain what we have here.
So every time we take all of this information, we put it into a map, and it's going to ping off of cell phone towers, and it's gonna show where your location is, and it's gonna give us all of this. So this is actually on the 13th, he's at home. He doesn't go anywhere, he doesn't do anything, he's just at home, chilling out, doing this thing on his phone.
So we know Kelly's last conversation with somebody was around 1 o'clock on Saturday the 14th. On the 14th, somewhere in that afternoon till later that night, we know that Higgins drove her vehicle, that white Hyundai, down 75 to the address in Ohio and back up 23. How do we know that? And how do we know, or at least how do we believe he didn't stop other than that Big Daddy's truck stop? Check this out.
So we can look at all the data points, and he leaves from home, drives down to the house, 15th, leaves from the house, and comes right back home.
Now I noticed that some of these are spaced out and these are solid. Why is that?
It depends on where the cell towers are and what the location is, if he deviated off at all, or where the location of the cell tower is, if it's hitting off of a Wi-Fi signal or if it's hitting off of a cell tower.
So this is all intro to lead up to this. So we know based on that Higgins was driving back, whether he had Kelly in the trunk or not, we don't know that yet. But we do know when he came up that sometime at around 2 in the morning, clicking over to Monday. Now we didn't find out about this until Monday afternoon when she didn't report to work, and it was unusual. This area up in Montrose, Marshall Road and Lake Road, we were able to ping his phone, and we found that her phone was already off, but his gave a signal. There was a farmhouse that has nothing to do with it here. Our ping was in this area, but when we pulled up to here on Lake Road, it was an exact location, and we found his phone on that south side of the ditch, which has allowed us to know that sometime at 2 o'clock when that phone was pinged, that after that, it didn't move because he was gone. So we know that he can be accounted for up until, and this is key, because I've got 34 hours that we do not know where he was because he dumped this phone. On the other side of the ditch was her phone already shut down from 2 a.m. on Monday all the way until noon when he showed up at a female's house whose husband passed away, was friends with this guy at noon on Tuesday. We didn't know what he did for those 34 hours. He was there from noon to 9-ish when a friend called and said, you need to get him out of here. He's wanted for a potential murder. He was again unaccounted for from the evening of the Tuesday until about 3 o'clock when our Saginaw County caller identified him, and then he killed himself at 4 in the morning. Why is it important, LT, to know those 2 time blocks for this briefing?
We can account for the time, for all the rest of the time. These are the times that he was most likely to have disposed of Kelly, right? It's a time that he most likely buried her. And if we can figure that out, maybe it'll lead us to a potential location where we can find her.
That's why folks that are courageous enough to do this are so vital to our investigation, because all of us are praying that she was there to give her proper burial and respect and dignity. But I know if this is out here, and it came to us last week, that there's more out there. We also know that this is a time for not only bow hunting, but you have rifle season coming up. People know their route, they know their area, deer camps, anything that you see, and we've moved our search up from around the middle part of our county, Flushing, all the way up to Ogama. Is that your section of interest from this point until we get some more intel?
Based on everything we've seen from the return of the search warrants, absolutely. Somewhere in the Montrose to Ogama range. That's the only time that we can account for as of right now. So if we can dial that in with hopefully some help from anybody watching this, then maybe we got a good shot at finding her soon.
So a couple of the things, I'll open up to questions. We have what's called luminol here, and this is the solution we spray on surfaces to see if there's any body contaminants. So the reason we knew that she was assaulted in her house and there was DNA in her vehicle and in the truck is because of this type of science. And we want to thank Deputy Stacci, who oversees that, to make sure that we're doing it correct, that there's a chain of evidence that can be backed up. Once that solution is sprayed and the lights are killed, this light illuminates the area and we can see whether there is blood or any kind of DNA that is a splash pattern, a splatter pattern, a cleaned up, mopped up pattern, and that's what allowed us to put those pieces together. The other thing I want to show you is this right here is just a map of where we are and what we're talking about. So Flushing City, right there on Luce Avenue, is where the incident occurred, and then he was identified and took his life right up here. But this right here is where his phone pinged. So we know that in a short amount of time, he was all right here, even after he went up to Prescott, Michigan. The other thing I want to show that's really important, if you take that please, is this is how intense the search is. So the county has geographical services that help us map out all sorts of things in the county. And so the DB asked them to grid out so we know per reference points what we searched, what we didn't, what tip came in. So if you'll notice, each one of these squares is a square mile. So if you look at like 6982, should that be something we did, that segment will be documented in our report. So when we go back, if we get a tip because this body of water is something we didn't search, we know what we did, what we didn't do, and that's the point of reference. That's how specific our documentation is and our search pattern is. And that's why it takes so much time. This tip, and I'll open up the question, is the key. The tip that said possible gravel site for Kelly McWhirter, dead end of Melker Road to North End, from Ryan Road to Prescott, west side, fresh dirt, 3x6, made by shovel perhaps, near this place, wheelbarrow. I mean, this is so specific that they were intentional, and that's that tip. And as I started this briefing, I'd love to take care of you. I'd love for this tip to be your invitation to help us do more and to put Kelly at rest and to give closure to this family. And that's where we are right now. I'll open up for questions that we can answer based on the information we have. Yes?
If you get a hold of this person who authored this tip, what are you going to ask them?
So the question is, what are we going to do when this person comes forward? Because I believe that a lot of it is just trust and confidence. The question that begs everybody is, how did you know this? And what is your relation to Higgins? I'm willing, and I have been in contact with the prosecutor's office, that even if this person reaches out to legal counsel and wants to come forward, wants to be protected, we will do that. I will surround them with protection, but the information is priceless. And so that's the first thing. How did you know this, and what's your relation to Higgins? And what did we miss? I mean, we're not perfect, but they're very good. And there's a reason why the letter was sent. But I tell you, that day was a disappointing no find. Yes?
Can you actually expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah.
How did you feel when, again, disappointed, but can you expand on that?
Well, I think it's important because Lieutenant Nicholson was there. And when we got the tip, we have a communication network within the sheriff's office that allows all of those that are interested parties in a particular incident to be made aware and briefed. And when that information was sent out, I think everybody was encouraged that we've got a really good lead. What was it like when you drove up there, you had your team, and then what happened when you realized that it's not?
It sounded like a really credible tip. We get there, right? And the dead end road actually comes right here. And then we park right near the area that's dug, so we don't have a search warrant yet, so we're looking from the road. It's really exciting to see the fresh dig area. You've got a wheelbarrow, all the stuff needed to dig that right there. So we actually had MSP cadaver dog respond, right, just to make sure. And after we obtained the search warrant, we went in and we started looking. The cadaver dog didn't hit on that spot. I mean, our heart sunk at that point. I mean, we were absolutely hoping to find Kelly right here. Once that happened, we actually expanded the search. So there was about 80 acres total there that we searched with the dog. And unfortunately, it just didn't turn up.
And knowing that this person who wrote this tip might be hearing this right now, what would it mean to you, given all this disappointment, all this effort, you thought you were this close to getting her, what would it mean to finally bring her home?
You know, it would be amazing. That's what everybody wants. We want to bring closure to the family with this, and that's the whole point of everything we're doing here. And she deserves that. She deserves to have a proper burial where the family members can say goodbye. So,
You know, as an analogy that I used to your point, imagine this being a 10,000 piece puzzle, but you only have 6,000 pieces. And you're trying to come up with some type of image, but those pieces are held by people that you cannot control, and some you'll never get. And so to have anybody come forward with a piece of information could be just the piece that makes this image clear. And all of us have done puzzles where it only takes one piece to make it sense. And that's what we're asking right now. If we have to do this 10 more times, we're going to do it with the same enthusiasm, the same professionalism. If a heart sinks 9 times, when we find her on the 10th, it's worth it. All right.
Any chance at all, call me crazy, but any chance at all that Higgins may have wrote that before he took his own life, that tip?
It's not a crazy question at all. The question is, could Higgins have written that before? This has already been sent to, this is prepared to go to the lab. That's why it's right here. We're checking fingerprints, DNA. So I can't say either way. We take, to get that confirmed, we have to do handwriting exemplars, which ironically is the oldest type of evidence in world history is handwriting analysis. We haven't gotten there yet because it's not a priority to find out the author that way. There's a faster way to do it, and that is using our media friends. I need you to give that message out there before we can confirm that he wrote it or not. Anything else, Lieutenant?
No, sir.
No, sir.
We will probably not do another briefing until next week. Until then, if we come up with something that we hope to, as you know, we will call you and let you know. But to the family out there, to the friends of Kelly, rest assured this team and the assets of this office, as I promised from day one, are not withdrawn, held back. It's whatever it takes to put closure to this case. This is our top priority. Among all the other things this office is doing, this is where we stand, and we won't quit. Thank you for coming.